That person in your childhood photos feels almost like a stranger. You share a name and a face, but are you truly the same being staring back from that faded picture? This puzzle is at the heart of an ancient thought experiment known as the Ship of Theseus, and it holds the key to unlocking one of life's greatest mysteries, your own identity. We are going to explore the ship of self, a fascinating journey that questions what truly makes you you. By the end, you will have a powerful new framework for understanding who you are and how you change over time. We will investigate whether you are defined by your physical body, your unbroken chain of memories, or if the self you cherish is merely a brilliant illusion. What is the one thing you believe makes you the same person you were a decade ago? The original vessel was a monument to a hero, a relic of wood and sail moored in the Athenian harbor. This was the Ship of Theseus, the slayer of the Minotaur, preserved for generations as a sacred memorial. But time is relentless, even for legends. The salty air would rot a plank. The sun would fray a rope, and so the caretakers would replace them. One by one, the old, decaying pieces were swapped out for new, identical parts. This maintenance was practical, even necessary, but it sparked a puzzle that would echo for centuries. If every single piece of the ship is eventually replaced, is it still the Ship of Theseus? One philosophical stance insists it is. The ship's identity, they argue, lies not in its physical components but in its enduring form, its function, and its continuous history. It remains the same ship in the same way a river remains the same river, even as new water flows through it. The opposing view is just as compelling. If you gather all the original, discarded planks and ropes and reassemble them into a ship, which one is the true relic? The reassembled ship made of the original material, or the one in the harbor that has never stopped being displayed? This simple question about a wooden ship splits our intuition right down the middle, and it is this very crack that we can trace directly to the core of our own being. Our bodies are not so different from that ancient ship. Every single cell in your skin is replaced about once a month. The stomach lining renews itself in just days. Even the atoms that form the sturdy bones you rely on are swapped out over years in a silent, constant cycle of renewal. By some estimates, in just under a decade, nearly every physical part of you has been replaced. You are, in a very literal sense, a ship sailing through time with your planks and ropes being steadily exchanged. And it is not just your body. The beliefs you held so firmly a decade ago, the music you loved, the very personality you thought was your core, have they not also shifted and evolved? The confident adult may bear little resemblance to the shy child, and the memories you cling to are not perfect recordings but stories you have retold and reshaped. So here is the deeply personal question the ship forces us to confront. If the physical substance of your body is in a state of perpetual flux and the contents of your mind are just as fluid, what is the one thing that remains? What is the actual, persistent self that you call you? This is no longer an abstract puzzle about wood and rope. It is a mystery staring back at you from the mirror. One answer emerges from the physical world itself, a perspective known as materialism. It makes a bold and startling claim. You are nothing more and nothing less than the sum of your current physical parts. The collection of atoms, cells, and intricate neural connections that make up your body at this very moment is the entirety of who you are. According to this view, the person you were a decade ago is gone. That previous self was a different arrangement of matter, and as those parts were shed and replaced, that old self faded away, replaced by the new collection you are right now. Modern science and neuroscience often lend support to this idea. When we peer into the brain with scanners, we do not find a single, unchanging captain steering the ship. We see a breathtakingly complex network of electrical impulses and chemical signals. Your memories, your personality, your very consciousness all appear to be emergent properties of this biological machinery. There is no ghost in the machine, only the magnificent machine itself. This perspective can be profoundly liberating. It means you are not chained to the mistakes or the limitations of your past self. You are free to reinvent yourself because, in a very real sense, you are already a new person. Yet, this same idea can also feel deeply unsettling. If you are just a temporary assembly of parts, what happens to the thread of your identity? Is the love you feel for your family, the promises you made, the life you have built, just an illusion created by a biological computer that is constantly rewriting its own code? This materialist view leaves us with a powerful but cold comfort, forcing us to wonder if the self is merely a story we tell ourselves. But there is another answer, one that finds the self not in the wood and nails of the body, but in the story written upon it. This perspective argues that you are your unbroken chain of memories and experiences. Your identity is defined by psychological continuity, the thread of consciousness that connects the person you are now to the person you were yesterday and to the child you once were decades ago. The great philosopher John Locke was a powerful voice for this idea. He proposed that personal identity extends just as far as consciousness can reach backwards. It is not the substance of the soul or the body that matters, but the self-awareness that links your present thoughts to your past actions. Think of it like a biography. A book remains the same story even if you replace its physical cover and pages, because the narrative inside persists. In the same way, you are the main character of your own life story, a story you are constantly writing and rewriting with every new experience and every remembered moment. This explains why we still feel a deep sense of responsibility for things we did long ago. If you broke a window as a child, you still feel that was you who did it, even though not a single atom from that child remains in your body today. You are psychologically connected to that past self through the memory of the event, or at least through the chain of experiences that led from that action to the person you are now. Your guilt, your pride, your sense of accomplishment all depend on this unbroken narrative thread. Without it, promises would be meaningless and relationships could not endure, for you would be a new person every morning with no debt to the past and no investment in the future. Yet, this elegant idea also has its own cracks. What happens to your identity when you fall into a deep, dreamless sleep? The chain of consciousness is broken every night, only to be reassembled when you wake. And what of forgotten memories? If you cannot recall a specific event from your childhood, does that mean it was not you who lived it? The chain of memory is not a perfect, unbroken steel cable, but more like a frayed rope with gaps and weak spots. This leads us to a third, and perhaps the most challenging possibility of all. This leads us to a third possibility, one that dismantles the very idea of a captain on the ship of self. The Scottish philosopher David Hume looked inward for the enduring self and made a startling confession. He could never catch himself, only ever a rapid-fire succession of perceptions, feelings, and thoughts. There was no single thing he could point to and call me. From this observation, he developed the bundle theory. It proposes a radical idea. There is no unified, permanent self. What you experience as you is merely a bundle of sensations, a collection of perceptions all tied together by the brain's incredible capacity for association. There is no central commander, only a constantly shifting crew. Think of a movie projected on a screen. It feels like a single, continuous story, but in reality, it is just a series of individual, static frames flashing by in rapid succession. Your brain is the projector, creating the seamless illusion of a self from countless discrete moments of experience. One moment, the crew is a feeling of hunger. The next, it is a memory of a friend's face. Then it is the sound of a distant siren, followed by a thought about a work project. These perceptions are fleetingly bundled together by your memory, and that bundled collection is what you mistakenly identify as a permanent I. You are not the ship's captain, you are the entire ship, its crew, and the voyage itself, all happening at once in a magnificent, chaotic, and temporary assembly. This explains why you can feel like a completely different person at work than you are at home with your family. It is not that one is the real you and the other is a fake. It is that different bundles of perceptions, habits, and social roles are momentarily taking the lead. There is no single, solid core beneath these shifting masks because the masks are all there is. This view can feel deeply unsettling, as if the foundation of your existence has been pulled away, but it can also be a source of incredible freedom. If there is no fixed self, then you are not bound to any preconceived notion of who you are supposed to be. The anxiety you feel, the limiting beliefs you hold, they are not commands from a permanent captain. They are just temporary crew members who will eventually be replaced by new thoughts, new feelings, and new ways of being. You are not a statue, you are a river, and this constant flow is not a problem to be solved, but the very nature of your existence. So where does this leave us? With three compelling but conflicting answers to the mystery of you. Modern neuroscience offers a startling window into this bundle of perceptions, and what it reveals challenges our most basic assumptions. When surgeons severed the bundle of nerves connecting the two hemispheres of the brain to treat severe epilepsy, they inadvertently created a profound natural experiment. In these split-brain patients, the unified eye seems to fracture. The left hemisphere, which controls language, can verbally report on what it sees in the right visual field. But the right hemisphere, seeing something different in the left field, cannot speak. It can only express its separate knowledge by guiding the left hand to point or draw. In one famous case, a patient's left hand would randomly try to close a book he was reading with his right, or pick out a different shirt than the one he had just verbally chosen. It was as if two separate, competing consciousnesses were suddenly forced to share a single body, neither fully aware of the other's intentions. This is not a metaphor. It is a clinical observation that the feeling of a single, unified self can be physically divided with a scalpel. If the self were a real, indivisible entity, how could it be split in two? The evidence suggests that our powerful sense of a central commander is a carefully constructed story, a narrative woven by the brain's language centers to make sense of the chaotic input from its various specialized modules. Your brain is not reporting on the decisions of a captain. It is inventing the captain to explain the crew's actions after the fact. This storytelling is not a flaw, but a feature. For our ancestors, a coherent sense of self was a survival tool. Imagine trying to hunt, build a shelter, or form a tribe if you experienced yourself as a disconnected series of fleeting sensations. It would be paralyzing. A unified identity allows for long-term planning, complex social cooperation, and the crucial ability to see yourself as a continuous character with a past and a future. This illusion is so convincing and so useful that we mistake the story for the fundamental reality. The brain is a magnificent machine for generating a you that feels solid and real, because that feeling is what allows you to navigate the world effectively. You are not the author of your story, you are the story itself, a brilliant, evolving narrative that your brain tells to keep you safe, sane, and moving forward. This challenge forces us to confront the problem of gradual versus sudden change. Imagine the caretakers did not simply discard the old planks. Instead, they carefully saved every single piece they replaced, storing the worn timber and frayed ropes in a warehouse. After many years, when every part of the original ship had been swapped out, they took that collection of original components and reassembled them into a perfect, seaworthy replica. Now two identical ships exist. One has sailed from the harbor continuously, its form and function unbroken. The other is built from every single atom of the original hero's vessel. Which one has the more legitimate claim to being the true Ship of Theseus? Our intuition splits violently. The ship in the harbor has the unbroken history, the continuous journey. But the reassembled ship has the original substance, the very wood touched by the hero. There is no easy answer, and this is where the puzzle sharpens into a razor's edge pointing directly at you. Apply this same logic to your own identity. Suppose science developed a way to gradually transfer your memories, your beliefs, your every personality trait into a newly grown biological body. This is not a sudden copy, but a slow, seamless migration over many months, neuron by neuron. As the transfer progresses, you feel completely normal, your consciousness flowing uninterrupted into the new vessel. At the end of the process, two beings exist. One is the original you, now an empty shell as the final memories depart. The other is the new you, inhabiting a fresh body, convinced they have lived your entire life. Which one is the real you, the being with the unbroken stream of consciousness, or the one made of your original physical parts? This is not science fiction. It is a philosophical pressure test that reveals a critical flaw in our definitions. If you side with psychological continuity, then the new being with its seamless memory is you. But that means you have just abandoned your original body, leaving it behind like a discarded shell. If you side with the physical body, then you are tragically stuck in a decaying vessel while a perfect copy of your mind lives on without you. The problem of the second ship proves that neither physical continuity nor psychological continuity alone can give us a satisfactory answer. It exposes the terrifying ambiguity at the heart of our own existence, forcing us to wonder if the self we cherish is not a thing to be found but a story we must choose. Perhaps the search for a solid, unchanging self is the very thing that creates the problem. What if you are not a noun but a verb, not a fixed object to be discovered, but a dynamic, unfolding process, much like a flame dancing on a candle wick? A flame appears to be a single, stable entity. You can point to it, name it, and watch it burn for hours, but look closer. The specific molecules that make up the fire are in a state of constant, furious exchange. Gases rise, combust into light and heat, and are immediately replaced by new fuel. The flame is never composed of the same physical stuff from one moment to the next. Yet we never doubt that it is the same flame. Its identity is not in its material, but in the continuous process of combustion itself. It is the burning. You are not the collection of planks on your ship, you are the sailing. Your identity is not a treasure chest of memories locked in a vault, nor is it the temporary assembly of atoms in your brain. It is the active, relentless process of living. It is the act of perceiving, feeling, choosing, and remembering. This process seamlessly weaves your past experiences into your present actions, creating the undeniable feeling of a continuous thread, even as the underlying components are replaced. This is how a river can be the same river while consisting of entirely new water. It is the same because of its flow, its path, its persistent pattern of movement. You are the same person not because you have retained some essential kernel, but because your life is a single, unbroken process of becoming. The shy child did not vanish. That childhood self was a crucial phase in the ongoing process that shaped the confident adult you are today. The process absorbed that experience, learned from it, and evolved. Your forgotten memories are not lost identities. They are the invisible currents that still flow within the larger river of your being, influencing your depths in ways you may never consciously grasp. This view finally reconciles the paradox. It honors the reality of constant, radical change while explaining our powerful, intuitive sense of continuous identity. You are not a statue being slowly eroded by time. You are a dance, and the constant movement is not a threat to your existence. It is your existence. This philosophical puzzle is not just an intellectual game. It crashes directly into the most practical aspects of our lives, into our deepest feelings of guilt, our most solemn promises, and our capacity for change. If the self is not a fixed statue but a flowing river, what does that mean for the burdens we carry from our past? The person who made that terrible mistake 5 years ago, the one who spoke those harsh words in a moment of anger, was a different collection of thoughts, beliefs, and even a different physical body. That version of you was sailing through a different storm with a different crew on deck. So why does their guilt still weigh so heavily on you today? Holding onto that guilt might be like punishing the current ship for the actions of a long-departed captain. It is the unbroken story of your life, the psychological thread that makes you feel responsible. But understanding the fluid nature of the self can be the key to a profound and necessary form of forgiveness. It allows you to acknowledge the mistake without letting it define your entire voyage. You can learn from that past self, honor the lesson they learned the hard way, and then consciously choose to sail on, lighter and wiser. This is not about evading responsibility. It is about understanding its true nature. The goal is not to forget the past, but to integrate it into your ongoing process of becoming, rather than being anchored to it forever. This same fluidity raises a haunting question about our future. If you are a process and not an object, how can you possibly make a promise to someone for a lifetime? The person who stands at the altar and makes a vow is not the same person who will try to uphold that vow 20, 30, or 50 years later. Their body will have renewed itself many times over. Their beliefs, desires, and even their core personality will have been shaped by experiences they cannot yet imagine. So is a lifelong commitment a lie we tell ourselves. Perhaps it is something far more beautiful and courageous. A promise is not a chain that binds a static self. It is a shared direction set for the voyage. It is a commitment from the person you are today to the person you will become tomorrow. A pledge to navigate the inevitable changes together, to consciously guide the process of your becoming toward a shared horizon. The promise is not a cage for your future self, it is the compass you give them. This perspective unlocks a powerful kind of psychological flexibility. Believing in a solid, unchanging you can be a prison. If you think I am just an anxious person or I am bad at math, that fixed identity becomes a limit you cannot escape. But if you see yourself as a process, then anxiety is not who you are. It is a weather pattern your ship is currently sailing through, one that will eventually change. A failure is not a verdict on your permanent essence. It is just one piece of data in your ongoing journey of learning and adaptation. You are not improving a static self. You are steering the entire process. Every mindful choice, every new skill learned, every old habit released is an adjustment to your course. You are not trying to find your true self buried under layers of conditioning. You are actively participating in the creation of yourself, moment by moment. The ship is always being rebuilt while it sails, and you have a hand on the tools. Western philosophy desperately searches for the captain of the ship, but Eastern traditions like Buddhism question if the captain was ever there to begin with. This is the profound teaching of anatta, or non-self. While Western thought wrestles with whether identity lies in the body or the mind, Buddhism presents a radical third path. It proposes that the very sense of a permanent, separate I is the fundamental illusion, the root cause of all suffering, or dukkha. Think of that feeling of a solid you inside your head, the thinker of your thoughts and the feeler of your feelings. Buddhism suggests this is not a real entity but a mental construct, a story the mind tells itself out of habit. We grasp at this idea of a self, we try to protect it, we build walls around it, and we suffer immensely when life inevitably challenges it. When you feel insulted, it is not some eternal soul that is wounded. It is a temporary configuration of pride, memory, and social conditioning that feels threatened. Your body aches, your relationships change, your cherished possessions break, and this fragile sense of I feels every blow as a personal affront. The belief in a separate, permanent self is what ties us to this wheel of dissatisfaction. So how do we investigate this for ourselves? The Buddhist path offers not more philosophy, but a practical tool, a kind of inner science. Meditation and mindfulness are the laboratories for directly experiencing the truth of non-self. When you sit in meditation and simply observe your breath, you quickly see that you do not control it. The body breathes itself. When you watch your thoughts, you see they arise and pass away on their own without a central manager issuing them. A memory surfaces, then a planning thought about dinner, then an itch on your nose, then a feeling of boredom. You are not producing this stream, you are witnessing it. You are the awareness of the phenomena, not the phenomena themselves. This is the great unveiling. What you have always called I is just a temporary, interdependent flow of physical sensations, emotions, perceptions, and mental formations. You are a river, not a rock sitting in the river. This realization is not a cold, intellectual dismissal of your existence. It is a liberating awakening. When the illusion of a separate self begins to dissolve, so does the suffering that was built upon it. The anxiety about protecting your image, the fear of loss, the weight of personal grudges all start to lose their power. They were never about a real, solid entity. They were stories told to a ghost. This understanding naturally gives rise to a deep and genuine compassion. If your own boundaries are fluid, then the separation between you and others begins to soften. The person who irritates you is also just a temporary bundle of causes and conditions, navigating their own river of suffering. Your joy and their pain are not so separate. This interconnected flow is the true nature of existence, and to see it is to find a peace that does not depend on the ever-changing planks of your ship. We have sailed through ancient harbors and peered into the workings of the brain, exploring the many answers to what makes you you. We saw the self as a physical vessel, a collection of atoms constantly renewed. We considered it as a story, a psychological thread of memory that stitches our days together. We even confronted the radical idea that there is no central captain, only a temporary bundle of ever-changing thoughts and sensations. And we arrived at the view of the self as a verb, a dynamic process of becoming, like a flame or a river. So which one is the true answer? The profound realization is that there is no single, final answer to be found. The treasure of this journey is not a destination, but the act of sailing itself. The value lies in the deep and personal questioning, in holding these different mirrors up to your own life and seeing what they reveal. This is not a failure of philosophy, but its greatest gift, an invitation to a more conscious and authentic way of living. You are not a passenger on this ship, you are its builder and its navigator. Every choice you make, every experience you embrace, every challenge you meet, is another plank you are laying into the vessel of your becoming. You are the captain of your ship of self, steering the ongoing process of your own creation. The ocean of identity is vast and uncharted, and the voyage is yours to command. So tell me, as you look at your own journey, what do you believe is the one thing that truly makes you who you are?